Hani different. Hmm?
Hello all, let's wait for 5 minutes and we will start our session. Hello Pranay. Uh, let's see how many. What's the count? 23. Um, mm, we'll wait for. Yes, it's a new scientist. So in this react sessions, the session would be lasting around 2 hours. 2 hours is the key because I need to explain a lot of things. So yeah, we'll wait for 3 more minutes because people haven't joined yet. So we'll wait for 3 more minutes. So we'll start our session, but okay, how many people have joined? 25. Fine, we'll start. Hello all. Welcome back to the session again. So in this given session, we are going to learn about how do we actually utilize this particular thing known as a state. How do we build components? Before that, we actually start learning about what is meant by a bundler, what is the use case of bundler in this given particular application, and also you'll learn about how do we create, a React application using Vite, and what are the advantages of using Vite. At the same time, we also understand the structure of any given React application. So before starting the session, can anyone summarize what we have learned in the previous session? Good evening. Good evening, Nazir. Okay, use state. Okay. So what is this important thing of use state? How did we use it? Counter application. Okay, okay. So in the previous session we have learnt about this use state, and also we have seen how can we manipulate the state, because the fundamental key point of this React itself is nothing but manipulating the state itself, not manipulating this entire DOM. We are actually trying to manipulate the UI itself using the small smart state variables. So we have seen how to create a state variable using use state function. What is the use state? How this use state has been arranged and other sort of things. Apart from that, we also have learned controlled components. We have also learned where we create an input box. Whenever we set say click, we just want to implement that same thing inside this counter itself. We haven't implemented it yet because I thought of like teaching it in to do section, but I have given brief introduction about what is meant by controlled components. So anyone has any kind of a doubt till this point? Everything is clear. Everything is clear. Yeah, we'll go ahead. So we'll go to back. We'll go back to our code. Sorry. Go back to our code. Let's let's say React. Let's say states underscore bundler. We'll say load that. Let's open it in VS Code. So yeah, so clearly we are at this given point of page where we have go to live. Let's click on this go to live thing. So it says we are in this given particular stage where we have seen about what is meant by controlled component, where we have already seen about what is meant by controlled component. Now let's try to understand. Let's try to understand here. In order to create any kind of a thing, we are actually showing it render, but if you go here, you are using React DOM to render the elements. But if you observe this particular thing known as thing, where it is given as a warning that this given particular page React DOM.render is no longer supported in React 18. So use create root until you switch to the new API, which is nothing but, instead of writing it here as a render, I'll say create root and after creating root we'll say const root is actually equals to this particular thing where I'll copy or I'll cut this thing document dot create root, where I'll say root dot render this thing. Wait a minute. Now let's go. Now let's see, this is actually render. Now if you get over to this particular thing now, honestly, there is no such kind of a warning. There is no such kind of a warning, but it is actually telling that there is, you are using in this Babel in transcript. So this error or this warning is regarding this particular thing. We should not be able to use this given Babel. But now let's try to understand. We are actually writing this entire code for this small set of code. We are actually using this entire React and React DOM altogether, where we are saying that React.useState and React.use this given particular thing. But let's try to understand what is the use of bundlers, which is nothing but, let's say I have this one component where I'll write it here. So I have this one component where we are actually telling it in this given particular format when we want, or I'll say we need a bundler, or we need a thing that creates us a normal React app structure, and also it should provide various functionalities in order to build a complex application using React. So why I am asking this particular thing is because if you observe this above code, we have created our root and we have rendered it on the things. In order to use this use state, we are actually creating this particular use state from this React object itself, which is to the thing of CDNs. So one disadvantage of using CDN is every time when we are actually using these things, when we are actually using these two things, then the simple thing that actually happens, or background what it happens is that this CDNs make a network call to these respective links and get the code and will imbibe into our script tag, imbibe into our code itself. So every time we are actually calling this, or every time we are actually dealing with any kind of a thing in the state itself, which is nothing but whenever I click on this. So in order to this change implementation, in order to implement these changes, React or our HTML file is actually just going to this given particular links and getting the data of this particular React, getting the data or getting the object of this React. Once React is successfully got to our network, it also has this use state as its method, so we are using it. And also in this React DOM, in order to get the React DOM, we are actually using CDNs, which is nothing but this React and React DOM are actually on some other networks, where using these given links we are actually getting them to our particular computer. So in order to work with React and React DOM both in our code, every time we are making a network call. So that is the disadvantage of using these CDN links. So that's why I actually wanted this thing where we need a thing that creates as a normal React app structure and also should provide various functionality in order to build a complex application using React, which is nothing but whenever whenever we need to render anything, whenever we need to create a root, we are actually creating all by ourselves. But we need something that actually pushes up everything, or that's actually a boilerplate of kind of a code where it should be ready, set done, that we go it and we code it. It should be that kind of a thing. So what is that kind of a thing? Is that it is nothing but bundler. So we have many type of bundlers. We have many type of bundlers. Sorry, many bundles. Probably I'll say three bundlers. We have three main bundlers where create React app, or this is actually is called as CRA. It's actually is called as CRA. Second thing is Wheat, and third thing is Parcel. So these three are the bundlers. And now let's say how can we include one of these bundlers into it. So each have their own advantage and disadvantage, but at this point of time in the market, everyone is actually using Wheat and Parcel. Because Create React App has a slow way of dealing with the things, like the downloading, necessary packages, managing those necessary packages, updating them, every other process. In every which way, Create React App is kind of doing a very slow process, but Wheat and Parcel are kind of a lighter weight bundlers. So we'll focus on how to add these bundlers into our code itself, into our given code itself. So for which I'll say Wheat. Click on this particular website Wheat, where this bundler has different important things like optimized build, universal plugins, fully typed APIs, rich features like out of box support for TypeScript, JSX and CSS, lighting fast HMR. We'll understand what is meant by HMR, like hot module replacement, and also we'll see instant server start. So we'll see how we can utilize it. Get started. Okay. Now okay. Now let's say try to include this particular thing npm install dash Wheat. Okay, so for that I'll say npm install dash d Wheat. Let's try to install this given particular thing. So yes, it is actually getting downloaded into our particular repository, into our particular folder stage bundler. But one important thing I just want to mention is that after this installation portion is actually going on, we can clearly see that there is a node modules thing. Where it has different kind of things: ES build, nanonoid, pickup, roll up. There is a bin item, there is a Wheat. This is the thing that we have included. But let's try to understand what exactly is meant by this npm. So we have used this npm, right? So what exactly is meant by npm? By the way, you might be thinking that npm is actually equals to something known as a node package modules, but it is not. Let's see this npm website, npm. So this is npm.js. If you observe this npm itself, node package modules, documentation, let's go to this GitHub, where we have this one thing. It is actually known as npm documentation, npm run dev. There is this one thing, npm package with gets by readme npm rc. I think okay, or else there is this one particular thing that should be present here itself, like in this given particular code, which is nothing but oh sorry, okay, there is this one file where it has all the names of, okay, I'll say that npm names in npm names file in GitHub. Let's search for it. So there are different npm names, like I couldn't find it. No, this is not thing. This is all the package names. This is not the thing. I think that file has been removed or what? GitHub reserved names. npm names. So all the package names. So npm name. I think this is another repository altogether. This is another repository. But any which way, which is nothing but npm name or the full form is nothing but is not node package modules. It is except nodes. It is except node package modules. It is except node package modules. It is except node package modules. Once you have downloaded this particular thing known as this Vite, you have these files, node modules and package.json and other stuff. Now let's go to this get started and let's say create an index.html file like this. Okay, in this given particular file, we try to create index.html. Inside this body, inside below this div, I'll say Vite. According to this documentation, they have this thing, and we can say run Vite. Acha, Vite command is not found. Okay. Oh, okay. There should be one package. So for which I'll delete these or I'll say I'll create this one folder where I'll say class 1, 2 where we have this index modules. So I want to move it. I want to also move this particular thing. Move it. And it's be seeing Vite. Okay, it's not finding it any which way. So run the Vite CLI in your terminal. I should be running the Vite CLI. So pnp bun and add. Okay, but now let's try to understand this particular thing. So which is nothing but let's go to this package.json. In order to run this particular HTML, we have this one thing. We don't have this scripts also where we can add this given script like this. I'll say scripts where I'll say run. I'll say Vite. Again, it's showing not command, but it's fine at this way. Let's try to remove this code or build. I'll say build. So Vite build. Vite index. I will say is 3 underscore input underscore counter counter dot html. Run the code. Okay, it is still showing this Vite build. Let's say in order to create this build, still it is showing me this thing. I think it's not complete batch. That's why it might show you this particular thing, but anyway, let's try to understand this particular thing where we have included one of our package. So I'll dispose it. So Vite. So Vite build, which is nothing but if you observe this particular code where we have our input counter, I'll close it. I close this thing. So which I'll say click on go live. This particular thing. Okay. Yeah, this is actually now powered by this thing known as a Vite. So Vite. Now this particular thing where we have used this npm, right? So what does it actually mean by npm? Let's try to understand this npm thing. So we have seen this node module packages. If you go and observe this particular thing known as an npm, we have seen that this particular npm, where go to this documentation, packages and modules, contributing the package register, creating a package.json node, where we have, let's say, npm. Let's run the code. npm license CLI code of conduct packages. Search for packages. It's not appearing. Internet is not too good. Okay. Let's search for packages. Let's say it is of 3. If you have, or if you went to this particular package of npm, where we have several number of packages, where this npm actually manages all the packages that are related to this node modules, which is nothing but this particular npm, I can say, is a ocean of packages that serve whatever a developer needs to build. Now we have seen this npx create react app. So I think in Portal also, if I am not wrong, we use this npx create react app to create a react app. Right? But what does mean by npx is nothing but npx is actually stands for executing the npm modules. That's what meant by this particular thing known as npx. So there is a difference between npm and npx. npm is kind of a package of modules. Whenever we say npm, the package will be from the internet, will be bought into our local system. The package will be bought by this npm. But coming to this npx, it is nothing but whatever package that we bought from the internet will be executed. That is the difference between npm and npx. Now, apart from that, once we have included this particular thing known as wheat, altogether we have included this given wheat, where it has different files, where it has readme also. It is telling that wheat actually it is actually pronounced as this one single thing known as wit. So this actually gives us these following things: instance thermostat, lightning fast HMR, universal plugging things, right, rich features, optimized build, and other sort of thing. So a build command, this is a build command that bundles your code with rollup. So if you have this thing, this is the rollup. So what is this use of this rollup? Is nothing but whenever we need to build it, let's say whenever I'm clicking this go live, now this HTML file is actually getting into something known as a server, and server is getting onto this browser itself. Similarly, whenever we say wheat build, then the things are actually started happening. So if you observe, in order to download one single package wheat, we have all these other packages. Which is nothing but all these other packages like this Nanonoid, PicoColors, PostCSS, Rollup, SourceMap.js, ESBuild, Rollup, Types, ESBuild, .bin. Every file actually is there to support this one single file wheat. So this is actually known as dependency. If you go to this particular thing known as package.json, we have two files like package.json and package.json. So what is the exact difference? Let's try to understand this. So package.json, where it is telling that in order to run this entire code, in order to run this entire build, what are the dependencies that are actually required in order to successfully run this particular HTML file? Is that this is the HTML file that it is actually required. So this is the package or dependency where in order to successfully run this entire code, we require this package. That is what meant by dependency. Similarly, go to this package.json. We have this particular things: name, log file version, requires, packages, and also we have this thing known as resolved integrity. So what does this actually mean? Is that if you observe on the left hand side, we have node modules like rollup and types guide. If you see this rollup on the left hand side in the node modules, that is the same thing that is actually present inside this package.json. Now, what is the difference between package.json and package.log.json? Is nothing but the integrity thing and this resolve thing. It is nothing but these are the things that actually present inside of our local code itself. So whenever we are actually running this entire application using this bundler, this will be run on the browser itself. So these particular integrity file, which is nothing but this is an algorithm. This is an encrypted key. This is an encrypted key where with this key we are actually telling to the browser that okay, you can successfully run this given particular file, because the original key is nothing but this is the key that I have. Browser or the thing that actually running on the browser, our website which is actually running on the browser will have a public key or a private key, where this particular integrity, which is a another encrypted key, this encrypted key is responsible that okay, whatever you are running on the browser is actually safe. I am actually running with this particular thing known as with this given particular computer, where if you want to check or if you have any doubt, I have my private key. So this private key will actually eventually go to the browser, and there will be a link between the browser and your particular application. So for that successful secured link, we have this thing known as integrity, and we have an encrypted key. So that is the thing with the package log.json. Now coming to this package.json, where we have these dependencies, which is nothing but whenever we say we tend to send some files onto the Git or onto the GitHub repo, we actually don't delete this package.json, which is nothing but if this package.json is a single file that is available into your Git repo, if someone wants to contribute to your code, if they pull down your code onto their computers, modified something and they pushed it, so they require this package.json, which is nothing but this package.json tells us what are the packages that actually needed to run this entire application, to run this entire single application. So this package.json has all of these dependencies, which is nothing but I'll show it to you. Oh, sorry. Where I'll say, let's try to create a Vite application. Now we will see how can we create a Vite application. So for that, I'll say desktop, where I'll say cd react. Now today the third session, so I'll create one file for this today's session, which is nothing but today we are going to learn about to-do application. I think use state. To be more precise, you'll see about use state and also refactoring the code. So yeah, cd use state, where I'll say npm create Vite @latest. Run the code. Yeah, it is asking the project name. So let's say project name is to-do. Now we have to select our framework. So our framework is actually nothing but, why every time this particular thing is actually not working? Okay, which one has cd to-do? Cd to-do. Okay, there are no files, so I'll do one thing. Uh, rm.rf. Um, rm-rf to. So there are no files, so I'll say npm create Vite @latest. Okay, I think there is a problem with my PC itself. So npm to do. My arrow keys are not working all of a sudden. But you select for this thing known as a React. So wait a minute. Is there anything that I'm missing? Okay, let's try this particular given code. So it because you just try with this particular thing npm create read at the rate of retest. So or else let's try to close it. Okay, close. So we will do one thing. We'll go to the React. So let's say open it where there are no other files. So I'll open. Show more options. Git bash code. Close it. So let's try to use it in this given particular format. So I'll say npm create wheat at the rate latest. Execute this particular command. It is asking us to do execute it. Now we have different options. So wait, I'll show it. Now we have these different options. So now I can select it React. So inside the React, I can say that JavaScript. So yes, now our application has been created. So it just took this particular simple code and our React, our React application has been created. So now I am on current thing. Now I'll say npm install. So create, npm install. So this npm install goes to this particular thing known as this bundler known as Wheat, and it actually starts installing the necessary node modules that helps us in order to work with React, or in order to make the Wheat which we have downloaded work properly. Yes, now the packages have been added. So you can clearly see that there is a to do, and inside that we have all of these things. Now node modules, we have this public thing, src and sort of a thing. Now finally we have this one thing where we have to say npm run dev. Okay, our server got selected and it is actually running in this given particular location. So click on it. So this is the thing that we actually see once you actually use this thing known as React, in the thing of Wheat. Because if you observe this one single bundler, wait a minute, where this one singular bundler is actually responsible to create all of these React application altogether. All of this React application, it also can create vanilla JavaScript application, Vue application, any kind of a thing, but it actually is capable of doing all of these things. Now let's say yeah, I'll try to minimize this window a bit down. So if you go to this readme file where it is telling that this React plus Wheat or this template provides a minimal setup to get React working in the Wheat with HMR and some ESLint rules. So ESLint is nothing but whenever you are typing some code, if there is any kind of error in your typed code, it actually shows red underlines under it, red underlines. So that is actually possible with this ESLint. That is actually known as ESLinter. And also, I suggest everyone to install this package of ES7. This thing, yes, this particular thing, because it would be very useful for you in order to write the React code itself. So everyone, please download this extension. Now coming back to this thing, yeah. Now coming back to our thing where let's say if I let's say there is this thing, edit this particular app.js x and save test to HMR, which is nothing but I'll just go to the source file and I have this app.jsx. Let's say if I change this plus Wheat plus React to, if I change say React sprint day 4, if I change it, whenever I change it, you see automatically it is actually appearing onto the screen. That is what it is meant by hot module reload or hot module replacement. If you observe this particular while Wheat, so This is entire documentation about wheat. It is actually a very fun read to, fun way to time pass the things. Where it is wheat offers us this lighting fast HMR, where hot module replacement, which is nothing but whenever there is a small change. If I remove 3 4 and if I just go to this particular application, you see the 4 is not missing. So this is what meant by hot module replacement. Even every bundler offers this particular thing, but wheat is lightweighted thing. So we use this delete in order to explicitly tell these particular things, in order to do these particular things. So let's say I'll remove all of this code. I'll say welcome, or I'll say to do. Let's see, this is the to. And also we have this entire file structure, where our entire file structure has been divided into node modules, public, where this public has this only one SVG format. So you can also delete this given particular thing. Yes, you want to move to recycling, you can delete it. So after that we have our assets. We have this source thing. Source is very much important. So very much important file in this entire React application or Vite application. And we also have this assets. So keep these assets. It will be useful at some other point of time. So we'll have to say this app.css is not that necessary, and this index.css, where we have our entire CSS code, and we have also have this app.css. Remove it, and now yes. And there is also this thing known as main.css. So I'll remove this index.css file because we already removed it. So everything should work fine. Okay, cancel. Okay, go to this particular thing. Is there anything that, okay, we need to actually remove these things. Now everything is actually working fine. So yeah. And also there is this one important file, main.css. If you observe this entire thing, create root, document.getElement by Rudy.render. So we have created this one single thing. We have created this one single flow of thing, where this app.j6, this entire file is actually present inside this particular main.j6, where this main.j6 is actually included in this index.js. See, this main.j6 file, actually included into this particular thing, where we have this id root, where we have this div element with id root. So in the previous thing also we have seen, or we have done similar kind of this thing. But what is the change that the previous things for this given particular thing is, now our React application is almost ready to code. It's already the boilerplate, we got it. And we also have this bundler. It also has lot many features like hot module replacement, ESLinter and other stuff. So we are now going to utilize all of them. And also finally we have this package.json and package.load.json. And inside package.json, so we have this particular thing, dev, build, lint, ESLint. So let's say if I want to see the build, I'll say wait a minute. I'll say cd todo, where we have these different files. Let's say if I want to say wheat, execute it. Okay, wheat is not recognized. Okay, so wheat build, oh fine, npm run dev, sorry, this is npm run dev, where we have, okay, where we have our code. I'll just close this code. And also we have this particular thing. If you go to this particular thing, where we are actually running our application itself, where we are actually running our application using this particular script. Okay, in order to see the preview, we'll say npm run piv. In order to use this ESLint, npm run lint, we actually say this particular thing where we have this one option, build, right? So what is it saying that run the script? If I click on it, it actually runs the script, which is nothing but this builds actually the build version. So at this point of time, do not worry what is meant by build version and what is meant by normal version. Okay, but in order to run your Vite application, we use this command known as npm run dev. npm run dev. The other way of using is npm run build. npm run build. So that actually is for build purpose, but yes, any which way. So this is your entire structure of your entire, any given React.js, template. So till this point, anyone has any kind of a doubt, like what is the structure, what is the things that are actually are there in this any given React application? So anyone has any kind of doubts, you can ask. Yes, yes, we include this Redux also. We include this Redux also. Any kind of doubts? And also, if you see this package.json, if you go down, these are the dependencies, which is nothing but without these dependencies, React and React DOM, our application will not work. Similarly, we have another dependencies known as dev dependencies. So all these things which you are seeing on this given particular package.json are actually present inside this node modules. Even Babel also is actually present inside these node modules, right? So whatever things that you see, this globals and sort of a thing, go down, we have this entire node modules. Where all of these dependencies are helpful in order to successfully run this entire code and perform certain actions like hot module replacement, ESLint features and other stuff. So till this point, anyone has any kind of a doubt? Yes, Viral Bank, in order to check whether how your code is actually running, we actually use this npm run dev, but we use npm run build when we want to test our application also, which is nothing but build is nothing but it is ready to push that code into the production itself. Production means into the final end, into the user's hand. That is what meant by production. So when we are ready with that particular thing, we use this command npm run build. Until unless we are only checking and we are making the changes and we are updating the stuff, so it is actually known as we use npm run dev. So Shivshankar, Yarn is nothing but a kind of a package manager where it also helps us to download different bundlers and their templates like npm. Y file ap.jsx. Now it is nothing but the fundamental philosophy of any React application is nothing but create the small part, use that small part to create the large part. So whatever code we have written, we'll actually pass it from this particular application JS to main JS, which is nothing but this entire React application is in the form of parent-child relationship. Even the DOM which we have seen, it is having a tree-like structure where it has a parent and it has a children. Similarly, that will be seen in this particular thing known as structure of this entire React application. So that parent-child relationship, or in order to maintain this kind of parent-child relationship, they have created these two things. Where this main.jsx is actually the main file that actually links inside this particular thing known as single HTML page. Inside this main.jsx or main.jsx file, we have app.jsx file. Similarly, if you want to divide your entire code into smaller chunks, yes, inside that app.jsx, we have some other smaller chunks. So give me a minute. I just have a bottle of water. Until unless you have any doubt, you can ask me in the chat. I'll come and I'll reply it. Sorry for this small thing, but yes. Uh, Sir, when we add dependencies, are they libraries? Yes, new scientist. No, Deepak. The one important thing is when there is a component. These JSX files are nothing but components. You see, this app.jsx is a JavaScript file, and it is actually returning some. It is actually returning some HTML file. Sorry, it is actually returning some HTML code where this is being utilized inside this particular main.jsx as a component itself. So for every component, we need to start this particular thing known as app.jsx. So app.jsx is component. So that's why inside this main.jsx, it is actually utilized. That's why it is started with capital letters. But you see main.jsx, it is actually started with small letters, where it is actually linked in the script tag itself. It is actually linked in the script tag itself, where its type is actually known as module. Um, so every component should start their naming with capital letter. That's a hard-coded standard value. Sir, when we add dependencies, are they libraries? Yes, they are libraries, new scientist. Structure is same. See, Shivashankar, structure is same. But npx create react app, why people actually stopped using npx create react app to create a react application itself is that it is actually very slow to download all the things. But if you observe, if you try this Vite, it actually happens. Every process actually happens within a minute. Like this, it actually happens. But create react app doesn't make the works very easy. That's why people stopped it. Structure of React application is same in three of these different bundles: create React app, Vite, and parcel. So there is this another bundler uh, known as parcel, parcel, oh, parcel bundler, where we have parcel.js or parcel. So yes, this is also one thing where this is trusted by these companies, and this is also a kind of a thing like Vite, a kind of a Vite thing. So it is also a very useful thing. So yeah, that's the reason why people actually started believing only this Vite. Viral bank, Redux, on Redux we have around 2 to 3 classes only on Redux. So Redux is a very big topic. So till this point, anyone has any kind of a doubt? Am I going too fast? Like, is my pace is good? Is it understandable? Am I going very fast? Like, is my pace is too fast on teaching? Are you able to understand what I am teaching? Uh, Deepak Yadav, CCBP ideally it's just for introductory thing, but from now on today use Vite to create React applications. To create React applications. Um, Sai Pavan, strict mode is nothing but making sure your application should work on a small chunk of things, not to have access to a large part of the React application itself. App.js should actually work in a restricted, what I can say, restricted container, or I can say that restricted way or restricted place, where that app.jsx is one such a component should not have much access to the outer part of the React. So that is what meant by strict mode. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, you say go ahead. I'll go ahead. Let's create a 2D application and let's try to understand what are the different intricacies that we need to follow whenever we create this 2D application. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Good, good, good. Now, let's try to create one to-do application. So, the first things first, where I'll say, first thing first, we need to create, or whenever we are writing a particular, or whenever we are writing any particular application in React, we need to create a static version, a static web page version. We need to create a static web page version. Then next, we need to figure out where to add dynamic nature to web page, which is nothing but that is adding state. After that, optimize or divide the code you have written into components if possible. Finally, check if the logic and code are working with with tests. So this is the actual step that anyone follows with this particular, but building this React app. First, the thing is we need to create a static web page version. So first, if you observe this one important thing where, give me a minute. I have got a call. Give me a minute. So let's wait a minute. Let's try to create this to-do application where we should have this one input element. So for which I'll create this input element. So the first things first, I'll do this particular thing where I'll say a div element whose class name is actually, I'll say input box. Inside this div element, we need to write this input element. We need to write this input element altogether. Yes. In this input element, we'll say type is actually is text. And I'll say the value to be actually equals to some static value. Add the to-dos using this box. So after this particular thing, we also need to have one button. We also need to have this one single button where we'll say add task, and we should also have another div element where I'll say div dot list. So inside this thing, let's say we have our UL, where I'll say 3 multiplied by line 3 multiplied by where I'll say 3 multiplied by, oh, sorry, where I'll create lists. I'll say 2 to 1. I'll say 2 to 2, 2 to 3. So let's see whether this code is actually running on the not. So I'll close all of these things. Yes, now we have this particular thing where we have our given particular page where we have two thing. Whenever we have to click this add task, we need to actually update this given particular list itself. So for that, we have created our first step, or we are cleared with first step where we have created our static web page version. Now we need to figure out where we need to add this dynamic web page. So for that, whenever we add or we type something and click on this button, it should be adding on here. So let's try to figure out what is the dynamic thing that we actually included with these two elements, this input and this particular thing known as input box and this given button. So for that, where we have our input box, where I'll say this thing, where we have this particular thing, where on this button on click, I'll say I'll include handle click. So where in this given particular thing, the first important thing that we need to focus is that, so we have this thing of use state, which is nothing but, I'll say const, I'll create a state variable for this, input thing, whatever it is actually having the things. I'll say set value, I'll say use state. By default, the value or this particular value should be actually holding this empty string. So instead I'll say that this is actually something known as value. Now after this value, whenever there is this button click, we need to add this particular thing where I'll say okay, this is set thing where I'll say this one single thing as this particular stuff, or else let's try to handle this particular thing itself. Let's say on change, whenever there is this on change event, I'll say handle input, which is nothing but whenever there is kind of any change, so I'll say const handle input. It's cost handle input. I'll create a function that whenever you see any kind of these small changes, then we need to handle that input, where in this format I'll say e, and I'll finally say set value, which is nothing but whenever there is on change event, whenever there is on change event, that actually whenever there is an on change event, I'll say e dot target dot value. E dot target dot value. So run the code. Okay, wait. We have imported React. Everything is fine. Okay. Minute. Okay, my application somehow it's not working. Let's try to run the code again. Whereas npm run dev, run the code. Okay, it is actually run. Control click. Oh, what happened? Any change that had been made? I think no. Use state value, set value. Mm, then add task. Okay, why things are not working? Let's try to see the console log. Acha, handle click is not defined. Oh, sorry. Let's say remote. Remote. No, yes, our code is actually working. So, is there any handle click event that has been solved? No. No. So, let's say if 12. No issues. No issues. No issues. No issues. Okay, okay, okay. Sure, sure, sure. No issues. So clear. Now, so whatever we have did is, I think what we have added this dynamicness for this given input element, where whenever there is a change, then we are actually calling this one particular handle input function, where we are actually setting the value, or this given particular value, the value which you are actually want to send it onto this given list. We are actually sending it. So how do we actually send it? That's the actual key point. So for which I'll say, whenever there is an on click event that actually happens, or I'll write this on click event here itself, where I'll say const on click, on click. I'll say simply um, oh sorry, add task. I'll say add task is actually a small function for which I'll use this particular add task on click function. I'll say add task. Whenever there is on click event happens, then we need to add to the task. But here, if you observe, this entire code which we have seen is not exactly is a static part, which is nothing but whenever we go to this to-do list, add something like something hello or something else, hello, and if I click on this add task, this should be removed. That should be removed and should be included onto this given particular tag, this particular element itself. So instead of having this li of 3 static elements, I'd say I'll create one certain array. So which actually is let's try to create one single array, because I just want to store each and every particular thing of this, or that which are actually present in this given particular code, or which are actually present inside this given list as in the format of an array. So which I'll say, which I'll create this one thing, which I just want to create it as a particular state variable. I'll say task arr, and I'll say set task arr should be the value of an empty array, which is nothing but here our task array, which by default should be empty. That's why I'm making sure this task array is nothing but an empty array. Whenever there is this an on click event happens, whenever there is a change, which is nothing but, let's say if I want to say go to gym, and whenever if I say this is a go to gym, and whenever if I say click on add to task, this item should actually add upon to this particular array itself, which is nothing but at this given point of time, where I'll try to add or try to code in this given way, where I'll say when there is this add task, I'd be coding in this particular bit. I'll be selling that, okay, set value, set task array is with the value. So the current value which actually is getting setted, this particular set value is actually helpful whenever there is a handle input change that actually goes for this particular task, see, for this particular value, that value I'm actually including it in the array itself. After that, I'll make this set this value array. Once this actually is been done, I'll remove the content. Now after this, here I'll say, instead of using it the thing which we have already seen how to render a given list, which is nothing but write it a map function. So for which I'll say task array dot map. I'll say instead doing this particular thing, the one important thing I just missed is here is that. So I'll remove this set. I'll remove this thing, or else I'll remove this one single line where I'll say let or const. I'll say new task. New task is nothing but my task ARR, or I'll say instead of telling this ARR, I could have written in this given particular format, which is nothing but this. Okay, let's say we have this one single thing, or so I'm stuck. Again, this is actually getting stuck. So give me a minute. I'll just set these things up. I'm actually unable to move my mouse, so give me a minute. Why it is not moving? Give me a minute. Give me a minute. So I need to move it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Unable to move it. Ah, yes. Now it's fine. Now it's fine. Now it's fine. Let's say instead of writing it as this thing, I'll say input value. Set input value. So that would be perfectly fine. Instead of writing it as set, I'll say set input value. Now where I'll just send for this given task, I'll send this input value as an input, and when there is a new task, I'll just say create this input value, and after that I'll create one new array, one single new array that actually helps us to render the stuff constant. This new task array, I'll say I'll create this one single array where I'll say this task array comma this new task, so here the main agenda is we never manipulate or change the state variable on our own, which is nothing but some people might be thinking that we already have this task array, we could have manipulated it, but here I have created a new array altogether, because the one single thing, which is nothing but this task array, which is actually a state variable, should not be manipulated by or on our own. The one thing, when we are actually manipulating this state variable, we need to copy it to some other variable, and then we need to manipulate it, and then we need to actually manipulate it, which is nothing but at this given point of time I'll say this set task, I'll say this say new array, new task array. Once after this setting of this thing is done, which is nothing but here I'll use a map function where I'll say it is task is given map. Oh, sorry. Map is actually a function, so I've confused writing this particular thing. Now we have to write, which is at this point of time I'll say return, because we have already seen in this list rendering. Say return. Oh, sorry. List rendering where we have say we return this task. Now let's check whether this code is actually working or not. There is a small change that actually had happened. So I'll say input value, yes, yeah, So is there any error that we made? The value, am I using value still? Oh, here itself I need to change. Also input and input. No, this everything is working fine. Everything is working fine. So which is nothing but I also I'll also say I'll remove this particular thing. Let's say if I say go to gym and if I click add to task, okay, some error has been happening. Go and check it. Error occurred in this above content. Warning, fine. Objects are not valid as React chains. Okay. Go back to this thing. Task array dot map. I'm actually mapping the things. Everything is fine. Now there is this add task. There is this button. Okay. Is there any mistake that we did? So input value, set value, any mistake that we did? So input value, set value, use state is this particular thing, task array and set task array. So where we have this value input dot target value. Everything is done. Is this function is actually wrong? No. We have done. We have done it correctly. So is there anything wrong which I missed? Error objects are not valid as a child. Error reading it. Okay, error reading it. So go to this given particular thing of task where this is the list class where we'll say instead of using this input values I used here. So this new task, everything is fine. So where we say got it. Let's see. Go to gym, click add. Okay. Now you can clearly see yes, this code is actually working. So there is this small thing, but whenever we say go to gym, this after this submission of this particular event onto the screen, you can clearly see that go to gym has actually happened, but this input element is actually having the value. That's why once this add task or once this set task is actually being done, then I'll say set input value to the value of an empty string. To the value of an empty string. Now go to here, run the code, where by default we have this thing. We'll say go to sprint, and if I add it, you can clearly see that this sprint. Similarly, we have this other part where it is actually, we can say that go to lunch, enter. Oh, sorry, add this particular thing. We have this lunch, and also if you submit empty strings, let's say if I click enter or if I click empty task will be submitted. But any which way, we have built our first to-do application where anyone has any kind of a doubts in this application, how we structured application, how do we do these things. It's not about the key, but initially I've just forgotten and kept one particular input value as a parameter. That's the error. So do not worry about it. It's just a simple thing that I've just missed to look upon it. But at this point of time, we have created our own application or our own to-do application. So till this point, anyone has any kind of a doubt, where we have utilized our entire thing, where we have seen this list, handling or list rendering, which we have studied in the first session. I have done it here, and also we have seen how do we add these different tasks and handle input, and also how do we write these given functions. So if anyone has any kind of a doubt till this point, you can ask me. So the second part is we need to figure out where dynamic page or adding state has been done. So our second part is also done. Now our we have a fully functional component or fully functional 2D application with us. So yeah. So till this point, anyone has any kind of a doubt? Okay, this is Saturday, but in which way I should congratulate you because you are actually sitting here and try to listen to this given particular class itself. So that's a very great thing. That's a very great thing. Anyone has any kind of a doubt till this point? If no doubts, tell me. Go ahead. Like, are they present in the chat? Everyone seeing the live? If yes, please say thing. Okay, Shankar, go ahead. Repeat once again. From which point viral bank I should be repeating? From which point? Acha, come on. Now, it is nothing but whenever in this given particular component, if I enter something, let's say it should be something known as, let's say, go to gym. Whenever I click on this add to task, this has to be added by default onto the screen itself. By default onto the screen itself. See here in React, we never wish to manipulate entire DOM. We only try to manipulate the UI part. So for that, I actually use this particular thing known as a state. Now coming back to this particular thing, where once there is an on-click event happens on this given add task button, then this add task particular thing will be actually created, which is nothing but we have already have our initial array, task array. We have initialized an empty array for this given particular state variable task array. Now here, whenever there is an whenever there is an value like this hello is actually tracked by this particular thing known as input value. Is actually tracked by this thing known as input value. Whenever that on click event actually happens, which is nothing but whenever this on click event on add task button actually happens, this hello or any content that is actually present inside this given input element will be initialized or will be equal to this one such a variable known as new task. After creating this new task, we are actually creating another new array. Here if you observe, task array is nothing but a state variable. Task array is nothing but a state variable. So we cannot write like this, which is nothing but we will say task array dot append. I'll say this input value, or I'll say this new task. We cannot do. We should not do. To be that should not do this, as here the state variable. The state variable is task array. Should not, as here the state variable should not be manipulated by our own. By our own, it should not be happened. We should make it happen. So that's why I have created a new array. And whatever things that are actually present in that given previous array, in this given particular task array, whatever the things that are actually previously present on it. So I'm going to spread all of them into this new array, and also we are going to append this new task, the new input value, into this given array. And next, the one important thing I am doing is that after making this new task array, I am making sure setting this this entire array, or setting this entire new task array, or this task array value, this task array value with this new task array. So here we are creating a new array from the above thing. We are using newly created array and keep it into this task array, which is nothing but a state variable. state variable. So here we are actually manipulating the state variable. We are actually manipulating the state variable task array by actually using this newly created array. So that's what we are actually doing. Once after this updation of task array state variable has been done successfully, now we are going to remove this thing hello from out of this particular input box, out of that input box. Now after that, our task array, which is nothing but after this given statement, our task array, or our task array to be more precise, our task array value is actually equal to new task array. This should be our value. This should be our value. This should be our array, right? So that should be this the array, this given particular array. Now I am actually making sure render this given particular array onto the screen itself, using the map function, So that's what we are doing in this particular on-click event. So this updated method, which we have this thing on set task and set input value, are the methods that are actually used to do this stuff. I mean to implement the state, to update the state. Now we are left with small refactoring thing, as this is actually a Saturday evening. So would you like to have our session for the next 20 to 25 minutes, or shall I stop it and can we discuss on Monday? Because this is a Saturday night, so I just want you to relax. That's why if you want me to continue, I'll continue, but it's up to your thing. That we are only left with just refactoring the things and understanding few nitty-gritty details, but yeah. If you want me to continue, let's tell me, sir, continue. I'll just go ahead and I'll teach the next 20 to 25 minutes, mostly 30 minutes. If not, we can have a leave. That's up to your choice, because today the chat is not that great. They are not predefined. We are actually giving the name. The state variables, we are actually giving the name itself. Uh, Please give response in chat. Shall I go ahead, or would you like to have leave, or would you like to have or to stop this given particular class at this point of time? Please respond in chat. Are you actually present in the class? Because some people actually told me that previously the session has been on this particular Friday, Thursday. The session is actually pretty long, so that's why I'm asking. Okay, tomorrow. So anyone wants to continue this the remaining part in the next session? Are there? If to go on, I can go on. It's your choice. Your choice, by the way, Viral Bank. Shiv Shankar, it's your choice. Misalamji telling that yes, Monday would be fine. Yes, Narsimha. Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Let's continue our class from Monday, because some people are actually really tired. So they have other works to also complete. So I'll do one thing. I'll just keep the class till this point where we have created our entire particular to-do application in this given point of time, and also we have seen what is meant by bundler, what is meant by node modules, what are the other stuff that are actually present, what is the difference between package.json and package log.json, and also why package.json has to be uploaded into your room. Um, so these are the things that we have learned in this given session. If you have any doubts, you can respond to my team. Otherwise, you can leave. That's it for this session. Thank you all.